Hello, it's time to talk water. This is Tropical Storm Day. Isais, if I said that right, is like on its way as I'm doing this right now, so that's August 2nd. We're going to talk about water. We're going to review some bonds things because it makes a big difference how water works, how it's structured. Structures related to function is a big theme. So, why water is your friend? Why you can't live without water? The right answer to that is not that without it you'd die. That's an okay answer, but we want to know why would you die? What would go wrong? What exactly is the problem with not enough water? So some of the things that water is about are really important for life. They didn't make the EOC list, so we're going to mention them real fast and go kind of through and focus on the ones that do. So the fact that water is transparent makes a big difference for photosynthesizers' life in the water. Didn't make the EOC list, so we're not going to mention it anymore. Okay, this is a biggie, as you'll see. The EOC list is coming up next. This term is not in the EOC list, but it has to do with a lot of the functions of water and the structure of water. So we're going to see that one again. This one is why this little insect can sit on the water. Quite important to this little insect, not a key factor. It's due to cohesion, so we're not going to mention surface tension again. The fact that it's fluid is a key because it can flow through your body. It can flow through bodies of water, big bodies of water, and that has a lot to do with life. That's not emphasized in the EOC manual either. These two are emphasized in a big way. Okay, so this is a neat little thing from the space station. If you want to tune in and link to that. So here we go with, and again, anything in red in these PowerPoints, these are right from the EOC syllabus, word for word, direct from the EOC syllabus. So I put them all in red, so you're tuned in on that. So here's what we're looking for. Special properties of water. Well, you could call a lot of things properties, like the fact that it is transparent, for instance. But here they tell you which properties they're going to talk about. And here's one thing I love about them. They have this statement, and then they have this statement, and as you're going to see, a lot of it's word for word the same. They snuck in a couple things over here that they didn't have up here. So the properties of water that contribute to life are cohesive behavior, moderation of temperature, ability, expansion upon freezing, which also has to do with temperature, and then how it's a good solvent. Down here, they tell you that the items they're going to ask you, what does items mean? Test questions, are limited to hydrogen bonding. They didn't mention that up here. Polarity, they didn't mention that up here. But they mention that here, and it has everything to do with cohesive behavior and temperature modification and solvent ability. So this is a key aspect right here. And then they simply repeat these, if you notice, but they snuck in adhesive behavior, as well as cohesive, which they only put up here. So we'll touch all those bases as we go. I point these out, and I'm very specific about it because a good part of your success on any kind of test is to know the nature of the test. And the nature of the test is straight from this syllabus. They're not going to ask you things that aren't in this syllabus. That's why I emphasize what's in this syllabus so much. That includes the language. If you have a word, a vocab type word, like cohesive in the syllabus, then they expect you to know what that word means if they ask it in a question. Okay, so here. So this is, again, the structure of anything is going to determine what it can do. That's its function, what it can do. And so here we have a review of what we finished with the last PowerPoint slide. Oxygen has a high electronegativity. What's that mean? Attraction for electrons. Why is that? Because it's got 8 positive protons to be attracted to. Now there's a couple other reasons, but this one makes simple sense here. So when it's sharing electrons with hydrogen, which only has 1 positive proton, you can imagine those negative electrons are attracted more to something with 8 positives than to something with just 1. So that should make sense. So this leads, like we said before, to a sharing of electrons that's unequal. Oxygen gets them more often than hydrogen, so to speak, and that means oxygen is a little negative on its end and hydrogen a little positive, and the word for a thing like that with a separation of kinds of things, in this case electrostatic charge, is polar. So that means that if I have two water molecules, this is a water molecule and this is a water molecule, and they both have both negative and positive areas, then that means the negative area of one is going to be attracted to the positive area of another. That kind of bond is called a hydrogen bond. That name was in the syllabus, as you remember. Hydrogen bonds are forces between intermolecules, in this case, two molecules of water, right? We're going to see hydrogen bonds in almost every other kind of molecule we talk about as well, right? But remember in the syllabus where they told you they're not going to ask you about intermolecular forces? Well, they might not use that word, but they sure are going to ask you about certain intermolecular forces, especially hydrogen bonds. So what difference does it make that water molecules are attracted to other water molecules or anything else with a charge? Well, here we go. So here's your model. We had this before, and we pointed out that really specifically, each water molecule has four areas of a little bit of charge. Remember that little gamma that kind of looks like an 8, but it's a Greek letter gamma? Means partial. That means a little bit. That means less than 1. That means the charge of this area is not -1. It means it's negative less than 1. Okay, here's what that means, and here's a better than my drawing probably picture of what a hydrogen bond is. Here's what a hydrogen bond isn't. This is oxygen, right? This is hydrogen. These two are bonded to each other, but they're not sharing any electrons, nor did one of them give an electron to the other. So this bond is not covalent, it's not ionic, but it's a bond. What does bond mean? They stick together. Why do they stick together? Once again, it's the electrostatic attraction of positives and negatives. So the reason for sticking in all three of these bonds now, ionic, covalent, and hydrogen, are the same. The electrostatic attraction of different charged particles. We humans have learned that about the universe. This is one of the forces in the universe. Okay? This force is not too strong, and that's why it's a logical good choice to represent a hydrogen bond with a dotted line, which is not like as strong as the solid line that represents the shared electrons of a covalent bond. So here you see you have a thing where you got to watch your words. Are water molecules involved with covalent bonds? Yes, they are. Within one water molecule, you have atoms covalently bonded to each other. Are they involved with hydrogen bonds? Yes, they are. Between two water molecules, there is a bond that's not covalent, but it attracts them together. So between two water molecules, there is a hydrogen bond. Within one water molecule, there are covalent bonds. The language is important there, between or within. Okay, so what does it mean that these stick together? Well, first of all, we have a name for that, and that's called cohesion. Specifically, when two identical things, in this case two water molecules, are attracted to each other, that's called cohesion. In a little bit, we're going to get to a water molecule that's attracted to something else, like the positive part of this one. If it was attracted to a negative chlorine ion, for instance, this kind of bond would be adhesion. We would call this a hydrogen bond as well. So here we have what this polarity and cohesion and adhesion mean in terms of life. Okay, so what? Water molecules stick to each other, they stick to other things. Why is that important? Well, one of the things has to do with this term capillary action, which you could see on a test, but they'll describe it for you because they didn't say you need to know this specifically. But here's the idea. I'm going to draw a picture. Here's a plant. There's a plant, but my picture is going to be simpler. From the trunk of this tree to any one of its leaves, right? I'm just going to give it one leaf. To its roots, water moves from the dirt down here up into the roots, up the tree trunk, and into every single cell of these leaves and every cell along the way. Well, how does it do that? How can it move up? Because gravity is always pulling things down. How can it resist the force of gravity and move up? This plant doesn't have a pump like you and I do to move fluids around. It doesn't have like a heart. It moves water around passively. In other words, it doesn't do anything. When it grows and puts all these structures together, roots and stems and leaves, it has little tubes that run through it. And through those little tubes, and it's key that they're little, water molecules will move, pulled by the evaporation of water molecules off the surface of a leaf. This is called transpiration, this evaporation. But the key is, if you pull a water molecule from here by giving it enough energy to break away from its other water molecules, on its way out, it gives a little tug to the other water molecules that it's cohering to. And those water molecules are cohering to others and others and others, all the way down, even into the dirt, so that water is actually pulled into a plant because of the evaporation of water that might be a couple 100 feet away in a tall tree like these trees over here. So this so-called capillary action really has to do with the fact that the water molecules are also attracted to the sides of these tubes. And when they're attracted to the sides of these tubes, they'll slowly move up if these tubes are small enough. When you combine that with this pull from the evaporation, you get the reason why water is able to move up long distances through plants against the pull of gravity without any kind of pumping motion or pumping mechanism like a heart.